Hello there. Tonight, let's settle in together at a small village plant nursery, just after closing, with the rain beading on the glass roof overhead. It's the sort of place you'd happily linger in past your time. Long wooden benches of bedding plants, neat towers of terracotta pots on the back shelf, and a green canvas apron hanging by the side door. A warm brass lamp glows over trays of seedlings in the little propagation room beyond. The shop is shut. The lamps are lit. And for the next while, the greenhouse belongs to us. And if these stories help you sleep, you should download our app. It's called Tonight. You pick a story, choose your favorite voice, and set a timer, and it all fades out on its own once you've drifted away. No more waking at 3 in the morning to reach for your phone and shut it off. It's a free download. The link's right below this video. Take a moment to settle in. Get comfortable, however that looks for you tonight. When you're ready, close your eyes. Take a slow, deep breath in through your nose, and a long, slow breath out. One more. In and out. Rain patters against the glass overhead, slow, thick and steady. The door is on a small spring, and it eases shut behind you with a soft click of the latch. Inside, the air's warmer than the lane outside. It smells of wet earth and green leaves. Somewhere, faintly, you catch a whiff of geraniums. The light in here is the color of late dusk through cloud, soft grey-blue at the edges, with a few small lamps already lit along the center aisle. A row of warm orange bulbs hangs from a black flex above the long wooden benches, and the brick floor underneath them is a deep, faded red. It's wet in patches near the door. The greenhouse is long and narrow, with a sloped glass roof and tall side panes set into a green-painted iron frame. The frame's old. The paint has flaked in places. The glass itself is beaded with rain, each drop reflecting a tiny smear of orange from the lamps. A sign on the inside of the door reads "Closed" in plain black letters. The hands of a small enamel clock above the till have just gone past 6. The last customer left a little while ago. You heard the bell on the spring above the door give one small chime as they went out, and then the long pause that always follows. The benches run in 2 long rows down the center, bedding plants on the left, herbs and salad seedlings on the right. A wider table at the far end with the larger pots. Bay trees, small lemon trees in dark blue glazed pots, a single olive tree in a half barrel. Beyond that, through an inner door propped open with a brick, you can see the back room, the propagation house. Warmer in there and darker. The rain on the glass overhead is the loudest sound. A long, soft drumming. No sharper notes in it, no wind to drive it sideways. Just the steady weight of it, settling onto the panes and running off into the gutter at the eaves. Somewhere along the central aisle, a single drop is finding its way through a tiny gap in the seal. You can hear it land, a small, slow plink into the saucer that has been placed underneath. Plink. A long pause. Plink. The greenhouse smells more than anything of leaves, wet leaves, tomato leaves, the slight sharpness of pelargoniums brushed earlier in the day, and under all of it the steady, dark, mineral smell of compost. You take a slow step further inside. At the till counter, halfway down the right-hand wall, a man in a dark green canvas apron is wiping down the wooden top with a folded cloth. He's in his mid-30s, lean, with sleeves rolled to the elbow. His name is Sam. He's been here all day. He has a green enamel mug at one corner of the counter, half full, the steam long gone from it. A small brass bell sits beside the till, a pencil, a receipt book with a faded blue cover, a small wooden tray of seed packets that didn't sell today, bright paper sleeves with pictures of carrots and beetroot and cornflowers ready to be tucked back into their drawer. He nods at you as you come further inside. "Just locking up," he says. "Take your time." You nod back. He turns to the till and clicks it open, lifts out the slim tray of coins, slides it onto a shelf below. The drawer closes with a soft clunk. He folds the cloth, picks up his mug, holds it in both hands a moment without drinking. The till counter is wooden, scrubbed pale by years of use. A small black ledger lies open at the back, with a column of careful pencil figures down one side. A pair of secateurs across the top, brass-handled, the blades wiped clean. A roll of brown paper at the end of the counter, a ball of twine, a pair of scissors on a length of string. Behind him, a wooden board hangs on the wall with small terracotta labels stuck on with pins. Verbena, cosmos, marigold, foxglove, sweet pea. Some labels are very old, some are new. A few have curled at the corners from the damp. Above the board, a small framed notice from the parish council about hedge cutting hours, pinned up some months ago and never taken down. The paper has gone soft along the bottom edge. Sam sets his mug down again and picks up the secateurs. He looks at them, turns them once in his hand, and sets them in a small wooden drawer under the counter. You move on past him, down the right-hand aisle. The brick under your shoes is uneven, worn smooth in the middle from years of footsteps, and dampened a shade darker by the wet of the day. The rain on the roof is steady above you. The lamp closest to the till has a small, almost invisible flicker in it. The small flicker a fluorescent tube has as it settles, and then it steadies. Plink! Another droplet drips into the saucer. The bench on your left holds the bedding plants in plastic trays. Pansies in deep purple and butter yellow, small primulas in tight clusters, lobelia in trailing blue. The leaves of the pansies have a faint coating of dust along their edges. Most of the trays sit on dark green capillary matting that has been damp all afternoon. The matting smells of wet hessian and slow water. A few trays at the near end have been moved already, set in a neat group, ready to go out under the cold frame tomorrow. You stop and look at a single pansy. Its face is a deep, soft purple at the petal tips, fading to a pale, buttery white toward the center. The black mark in the middle is small and slightly off-center, the way it always is. A single drop of water sits in the cup of one petal, perfectly still. The leaves of the plant beside it are flecked with the faintest white powder along one edge. Feed, dusted on earlier and not yet washed in. You can see where the small label has been pressed too far down into the soil, the green plastic tongue tilted forward. Further along the bench, a tray of forget-me-nots, low and small, the blue flowers still tightly closed for the evening. Behind them, the larger pots of perennials, lavender in dark plastic pots, the foliage still grey-green and damp, the smell of it released faintly into the warm air when you brush past. Sam crosses behind you, down the central aisle, carrying an empty wooden tray. He sets it on a shelf under the long bench and walks on. The lamps along the center throw circles of warm light onto the brick. Between the circles, the floor is dimmer. You can see the shape of a small puddle from where the door was opened, and the slow gloss of it under the next lamp. A small house spider is sitting motionless in the corner of one of the glass panes, very high up. It's been there a long time, probably. You can see the threads of its web running off into the iron frame in two pale lines. The pansies have almost no scent. The lavender smells faintly green. Underneath, the brick and the wet matting and the long, low note of compost from the bags stacked along the wall. The rain keeps on the same. Still on the roof, still steady. Still that long, soft drumming that fills the whole space without ever rising or falling. The inner door at the far end is propped open with a half brick, and the air through it is warmer, damper. It smells more strongly of soil, of vermiculite, of the faint sharpness of tomato seedlings, that green, almost peppery note that the leaves give off when they're brushed. You step through. The propagation house is smaller than the front room. The ceiling is lower. The glass overhead is fogged in places, with the warmth from inside meeting the cool rain outside. Two long wooden benches run along the walls, deeper than the ones in the front room, and on them sit rows and rows of small black plastic trays. The trays are full of seedlings, some no taller than your fingernail, some 4 or 5 inches high, with the first true leaves just showing above the cotyledons. A single brass-shaded lamp hangs low above each bench, warm orange light, just enough to see by. At the end of the bench, a small galvanized watering can sits on the floor, full from the tap by the side door. The spout is the long, thin kind with a fine rose at the end. The metal is cold and faintly green at the rim. Sam comes through after you, an empty plant tray under one arm. He sets the tray down on the side bench and picks up the watering can. He weighs it once in his hand, lifts it gently, and starts at the far end. He waters one tray at a time, as he does every evening before locking up. He holds the can low, the rose only an inch or two above the surface of the compost, and lets the water come out in a slow, even shower. The water is cold from the tap. It darkens the surface of the compost in a slow sweep from one side of the tray to the other. He waits. He starts with the tray of basil seedlings. Their leaves are small and pale green, no bigger than peas, set in pairs along the thin stems. The water beads briefly on the leaves and then runs down. The compost beneath darkens to a deep, even brown. He lifts the can away. He waits. Next to it, parsley, sown later, just beginning to sprout. The seedlings are thin and bent at the top, the seed leaves narrow. He keeps the rows lower over this one. The water comes through more slowly. The compost takes it in steady. He moves down the bench. Coriander, a little taller, then chervil, low and feathery. Then a tray of lettuces, little gem, 2 trays of them, the leaves already loose at the base, pale green, soft. He waters each one the same way. Slow shower, low rose, pause, lift. The rhythm is the same every time. He doesn't rush it or slow it. He keeps it steady. The water comes out of the rose in a soft hiss. The compost darkens. The seedlings tremble very slightly under the weight of the drops, and then go still again. At the end of the first bench, he pauses. The can is lighter now. He sets it down on the brick floor and walks back to the tap by the side door. The tap is brass, old, set into the wall above a low stone sink. He turns it on. The water runs cold and clear into the can, with a sound that fills the whole back of the greenhouse, a soft, hollow drumming as the can fills, the note rising as the water gets higher, then slowing to a steadier pour as he eases the tap off. He carries the can back, starts the second bench. This bench is brassicas, small trays of cabbages, kale, kohlrabi. The leaves are rounder, paler, with a faint blue cast to them. He waters them the same way. Slow shower. Pause. A small black and white moth has settled on one of the iron beams overhead. It is folded shut, very still. You can see the faint pattern on its closed wings. Sam moves on. There are trays of flower seedlings down the back wall. Antirrhinums, cosmos, scabious. The leaves are different shapes. The cosmos seedlings are fine and lacy. The antirrhinums are stubby and round at the top. He waters each one the same way. The rain continues on the roof. In the propagation house, the sound is a little different. The glass is steeper here, set at a sharper angle, and the rain runs off it in long sheets rather than drumming. You can smell the wet compost rising as the water goes in. It's a clean smell, mineral, a little sweet from the peat. Under it, the faint, faint green of the seedlings themselves. Sam reaches the last tray on the second bench. It's a small one, only 6 modules, with tiny seedlings just up, the first leaves barely unfurled. He bends a little closer. He lowers the rows to almost touch the surface of the compost. The water comes out in a very fine shower, almost a mist. The seedlings barely move under it. The compost darkens slowly. He lifts the can away, straightens, sets the can down on the brick floor by the sink. He stays there a moment. He looks down the long bench, from the far end to the near, at all the trays now dark and damp, the seedlings settled. Then he picks up a small wooden label from a pile on the side bench, dips a pencil into a tin, and writes, slowly, a date on the back of the label. He pushes the label into the compost of the last tray. The pencil makes a soft scratching sound as he writes. You hear it, the pencil. The drip of water from one of the trays onto the brick below, a slow tick, and the rain still on the roof above. The lamp hums very faintly. A drop of water from the watering can rose hangs on the rim, gathers and falls. Sam picks up his mug from where he left it on the side bench, takes a small sip, sets it down again. He doesn't glance up. That's all for tonight, he says, half to himself, and walks back through to the front room. The lamps in the propagation house stay on. The seedlings sit in their damp compost, the leaves slowly losing the last beads of water as they roll off into the surface. You stay another moment. The smell here is stronger now after the watering, wet earth and the faint green of young leaves. The temperature is steady. The rain on the steep glass is a quiet, long sound, low and even. You step back through the inner door into the front room. The air feels a little cooler after the warmth of the propagation house. The lamps along the central aisle are still lit. The rain on the roof is still steady. Across the aisle from the bedding bench is a small wooden table set against the right-hand wall, lower than the rest, with a single panel of glass above it, angled to catch the light from the side window. This is the orchid corner. There are not many, perhaps a dozen plants, but they have their own bench here, warmer than the rest, slightly more humid. A small electric heater sits underneath the table, set low. You can hear its soft tick, the slow click of the metal expanding under gentle warmth. The air around the table is a degree or two warmer than the air on the central aisle. The orchids are in clear plastic pots, the roots wandering out through the holes. Some are in flower. A small white one with a pale green throat. A larger pink, the flowers arched along a single thin stem. A spotted yellow on the back row, 3 flowers open, 2 still closed. The white one is closest to you. You bend a little to look. Each flower has a small, faintly green line running down the throat to the center. The petals are smooth. The whole plant has only a thin sweetness very far off. The leaves of the orchids are thick, dark green, slightly waxy. The pots stand on shallow trays of small grey pebbles, the pebbles half covered in water from the day's misting. A small spray bottle sits on the end of the table. The label has come half off. The plastic of the bottle has gone soft and faintly cloudy with years of use. The heater clicks again under the table. The air shifts slightly above the bench. Above the orchid corner, hanging from one of the iron crossbeams, a small wire basket of trailing string of pearls. Long, thin stems hung with pea-shaped leaves, dropping down a foot or more. The leaves catch a little of the lamplight along their lower curve. The white orchid is still. The pink orchid is still. The yellow is still. The string of pearls hangs perfectly still, the lower leaves almost touching the top of the spotted yellow's stem. Out beyond the side panes, the lane is dark now. You can see the wet stones of it faintly, lit by a single yellow lamp on a black iron post at the far corner. The rain falls past the lamp in long, slow lines. A small cat, black with white paws, is sitting in the doorway of the cottage opposite, watching the rain. It's been there a while. You turn back to the inside of the greenhouse. Sam has fetched a soft brush and a long-handled dustpan from the corner by the side door and is sweeping the central aisle. He starts at the far end by the inner doorway and works back toward the till. He sweeps slowly. The bristles of the brush make a soft, dry whisper against the brick. He sweeps up small drifts of spilled compost, a few brown leaves dropped from the geraniums earlier in the day, a piece of broken terracotta from a pot one of the customers must have set down too hard. He tips each load gently into the long-handled pan, and when the pan is full, he tips the pan into a green plastic bucket by the side door. He leaves the corners alone. He skips the very edges of the bricks where the wall meets the floor. He sweeps the middle of the aisle where it matters, where people walk, and lets the rest be. Forward, back. Forward, back. A small pause to tip the pan. A few steps further down the aisle. Forward, back. Halfway down, he stops, leans the brush against the bench, and picks up a dropped seed packet from beside the lobelias. The packet is a little damp at one corner. He looks at the picture on the front. Cornflowers, the bright blue kind, and slides the packet back into the wooden tray at the till. The corners of the tray are dark from where damp packets have been replaced over the years. He goes back to the brush. Forward, back. The sound of the bristles on the brick mixes with the long sound of the rain above, and the slow plink of the drip into its saucer. All of these sounds are quiet. All of them are soft. They sit together at about the same low volume, layered. A small moth has come up out of the warmer back room and is circling once around the nearest lamp. It is grey-brown and small. After one slow loop, it settles on the underside of the lampshade and stays there, wings flat. Sam reaches the till end of the aisle. He props the brush against the counter, tips the last load from the pan into the bucket, sets the pan down beside it. He picks up his mug again, takes a small sip, sets it down. He walks past you, down toward the side door, and the brush stays leaning where he left it. The right-hand bench in the front room is mostly herbs. They sit in low brown clay pots, ranged in a long row. Rosemary, with its narrow leaves and faint blue-grey cast. Thyme, low and tight, the leaves the size of a small grain. Sage, broader, with leaves that look soft and faintly furred when you look closely. Mint in 3 pots. Common mint, apple mint, and a small pot of peppermint at the end. You stop beside the rosemary and let one hand pass close to it, not quite brushing the leaves. Even so, the scent lifts. Sharp, clean, a little resinous. It mixes with the warm earth smell of the wet brick and the low compost note from the propagation house. And the result is not sharp at all, just green and warm and steady. The thyme comes next. Its smell is harder to draw out without touching, so you bend a little. There is a faint sweetness in it, very subtle. The sage comes next. Its leaves are dry on top, almost dusty in the lamplight. The smell is faint until you are right above them. The mint pots are at the end. The common mint has a few small holes in the leaves, slug damage from a week or 2 back, healed over now. The apple mint is taller, the leaves rounder. The peppermint is darker, the stems faintly red at the bottom. A small plastic label has fallen out of one of the mint pots and lies on the bench. You can see the name on it in faint blue ink. Mentha, and the word for the variety smudged. The rain runs harder for a moment overhead, then settles again. The drip in the saucer plinks away like a slow, soft metronome. Above the herbs, a small handwritten sign in pencil on a brown card. Take a sprig home to try, is tacked to the wood of the bench. The The pencil has gone a little soft from the damp. The corners of the card are curled. Sam passes again behind you, on his way to the side door, the bucket of swept compost in one hand. He steps out through the door without speaking. You hear the door click shut. A small gust of cooler, wetter air slips in for a moment as it opens and closes. When he comes back, the bucket is empty. He sets it down and closes the door again, sliding a small iron bolt into place. Along the back wall, past the orchid corner, a low wooden shelf holds a stack of empty terracotta pots, sorted by size. Sam stops at the shelf on his way back from the side door and starts to tidy them. He takes the smallest pots, the thumb pots, from a wobbling pile and stacks them in clean towers of 10. He counts under his breath as he goes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He sets the tower down. He starts another. The terracotta makes a soft sound when one pot slides into another. A dull, hollow note, low and short. He stacks them slowly. Each pot has a small grit of old compost in the bottom. Some have a faint white bloom along the rim from minerals in the water. He brushes a few with his thumb, then stacks them so they sit straight. The next size up is a 4-inch pot, then 5, then 6. He works up through the sizes. The larger ones go in shorter stacks, only 4 or 5 high, to keep them from toppling. The biggest, the gallon size, just sit upside down in 2s and 3s on the shelf below. A small spider runs out of one of the pots as he lifts it and disappears down behind the shelf. He doesn't see it. He sets the pot on its tower and moves on. When the last stack is finished, he steps back, looks at the shelf, and gives a small nod. He brushes his hands once down the front of his apron. Faint, pale dust comes off them in a small cloud and settles back onto the brick. The lamp above the till flickers once, holds, steadies. The rain on the roof patters away. Steady. The drip in the saucer continues at its slow pace. The clock above the till has moved on. 6:20. Sam picks up the brush, sets it properly in its place by the side door, hangs the long-handled pan on its nail. He walks back down the aisle toward the till. His boots are dark brown leather, scuffed at the toe, with a soft tread that doesn't carry far on the brick. Behind the till counter, half hidden by a wooden partition, there is a small office nook. It's no bigger than a cupboard. A narrow wooden table is set against the wall, with a single wooden chair pushed under it. A small cast-iron stove sits low in the corner, more for warmth than anything else, with a dark kettle resting on top. The stove's unlit tonight. The warmth in here comes from the propagation house and from the heater under the orchids. On the table, a notebook lies open, with a slim pencil resting in the crease. A few seed catalogues are stacked at one end, dog-eared, with small pencil ticks beside some of the listings. A glass jar holds a handful of pens and a pair of small scissors. A tin biscuit box, the lid slightly dented, sits at the back of the table. Sam steps into the nook. He picks up the kettle, gives it a small shake to check the water, and sets it down again. He thinks better of it, picks it up once more, and walks out to the tap by the side door. You hear the soft drumming of water filling the kettle, then the soft thunk as he sets it back on the stovetop. He leaves the stove unlit. The room is warm enough already. He sets the kettle down against the cast iron in case he wants it later, and stays where he is for a moment, one hand resting on the back of the wooden chair. The notebook on the table has a list of jobs for tomorrow. You can see the writing faintly in the lamplight. Pot on tomatoes. Order more peat-free. Bring in the geraniums. Check leaks at far end. The writing is small and steady, in pencil, slightly slanted. A printed notice from the seed supplier is pinned to the partition. Below it, an unrelated piece of paper, a takeaway menu from the place in the next village along, has been pinned up too for some reason. The corners gone soft with damp. Sam moves out of the nook. He starts to turn off lamps. He works backward from the far end of the greenhouse. The lamp above the propagation house stays on. It does every night, to keep the room a little warmer through the dark hours. The next lamp, the one above the lemon tree at the far end of the front room, he reaches up and clicks off. The light dies softly. The far end of the greenhouse goes dim. He moves to the next lamp. Click. Softer. The next. Click. He leaves the lamp above the till on, and the small brass-shaded one over the orchids, and the one in the propagation house at the back. The rest go off, one by one. The greenhouse has gone dimmer. The brick floor is dark in the middle, with 3 soft pools of warm light spaced down its length. One over the till, one over the orchids, one through the inner doorway from the propagation house. The rain on the roof has not changed, still keeping its slow, steady beat. The droplets plink away into the saucer. Sam comes back to the till. He picks up his green enamel mug, finds it empty. He sets it gently on the counter. He folds the cloth he had been using earlier and lays it over the edge of the wooden tray of seed packets. He pulls a small wooden stool out from under the counter and sits down. The white orchid is still. The pink behind it is still. The yellow at the back has its 3 flowers open, just as it did when you came in. The temperature in the greenhouse is steady. The plants are settled for the night. Your hands have come to rest. The rain on the glass overhead is the only real sound. Beneath it, smaller, the soft tick of the heater under the orchids. The slow plinking of the drip. The faintest hum of the lamp above the till. Sam picks up his pencil from the till counter. He opens the small ledger to a fresh page. He writes the date at the top. Then he closes the ledger. He stays where he is for a while. The brick under your feet is solid, slightly cool, slightly worn. The air smells of wet leaves and compost and faint green. The light is soft. A small moth comes out from somewhere down the central aisle and circles slowly toward the lamp above the till. It loops once, twice, and settles on the wood of the counter, wings folded. Sam stays still. The rain falls. The lamp hums very softly. After a little while, you couldn't say how long, the cat across the lane finally moves. You see it through the side panes, just for a moment. It walks slowly across the wet stones to the next doorway. Sits down again. Settles. The lane falls quiet. The single yellow lamp at the far corner stays on. Inside the greenhouse, everything is in its place. The bedding plants on their matting, the herbs in their clay pots, the orchids on their pebbles, the seedlings damp and dark in the propagation house, the terracotta pots stacked tidy on the shelf, the brush leaned in its corner, the bucket by the side door. Sam is still sitting where he was. He has one hand resting on the closed ledger. The other is wrapped around the empty mug. The rain settles a little softer. Your breath is slow. The lamp over the till is the warmest pool of light in the room. The brick beneath it has a faint gloss from the wet of the day. Somewhere, far off, a church clock chimes the half-hour. 6 small, slow notes, almost lost in the rain. Then, quiet. Sam takes a slow breath. He puts the mug down. He looks once around the greenhouse, at the till, at the herbs, at the bedding plants, at the open inner door to the propagation house. And then he just sits. The rain, the lamps, the slow drip. The orchids are still. The rain runs down the sloped glass in long, soft sheets. Each drop carries a tiny smear of orange from the lamp. The sheets meet and join and run off into the iron gutter at the eaves. A single drop hangs at the edge of the glass for a long moment. Then it falls. Then another takes its place. The smell of wet earth is soft now. The smell of leaves is gentle. The faint green of the seedlings barely carries. Plink. The drip. The rain. The lamp above the till hums on. The propagation house glows warm through the inner door. The seedlings rest in their damp compost. The label Sam wrote on earlier sits in its tray. The new date in soft pencil. The greenhouse is quiet. Sam closes his eyes, just for a moment, opens them, sets the mug a little to one side of the counter. Outside, the lane is empty. The cat has gone in somewhere. The single street lamp shines on the wet stones. The rain falls. The lamp hums. The greenhouse is settled for the night. Just the rain. Just the lamps. Just the orchids on their pebbles. The seedlings in their trays. The small towers of clean pots. Just the rain on the greenhouse glass. Slow and steady and quiet.